Okay, hey everyone, I'm Alyssa. So this is my visual and verbal presentation. I've chosen to do my assignment today on obesity. Yay! This is one of the epidemics in our society today, so I thought it'd be really important to do a presentation on it. Okay, so one portion of this project is interactivity. So they want our project to also be interactive with the people watching. So to do this, at the end of my presentation, I have put together a small little quiz. So we'll see how that goes at the end. Okay, so one really big question, what is obesity? So this sounds kind of silly, I know, because we've all heard the term obesity. But basically, obesity is having a weight that is above an accepted standard, and it begins having negative impacts on your body. Wrong way. Okay, so what causes obesity? Now that we know what obesity is, we can talk about what causes it. So the main cause of obesity is taking in more energy than you are expending. This happens like occasionally. It's not too bad. You're not going to wake up and suddenly be obese, but if you make a habit of it, you can become obese. Next slide. So I went back again. Is obesity the same in everyone? Now this is an important question because I've heard a lot of different opinions on this. Some people think it's the same, others say it's not. So the answer to this is no, obesity really isn't the same. Lots of people will gain weight differently and in different places. You could have two people who are eating the same amount of excessive energy and who are having low physical activity and aren't expending a lot of energy, and they'll still gain different amounts and in different places. Okay, so does childhood weight affect obesity? So again, this is another thing that lots of people have different opinions on. Some people say no, it doesn't affect it, others say it does. But in all honesty, it does affect it, because about 70% of children who are considered to be obese when they're young will maintain that excessive weight when they become adults. Okay, so the 2007-2009 Canadian Health Measures Survey found that 24% of the population was obese. So that's a fairly large portion, like that's almost a quarter of all of us Canadians at that time. And based on the population during those years, that would be roughly 9 million people in Canada were considered to be obese. So that really shows that we need to pay attention to this to help lower that number. Okay, so what are the complications of obesity? We talked about how obesity is when it starts having negative impacts. So I feel it's important to list some of those things. You could have things like hypertension, increased strokes, impaired kidney function, joint and bone problems. These are all pretty serious, but another very common complication among those struggling with weight problems is depression. So none of these are really great, but with obesity on the rise, that means that our population is having more medical complications and higher health risks. Okay, so next we're going to talk about a condition called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is a condition of low muscle mass compared to body fat. This person generally won't look obese, but because of what the condition is, they will often technically be obese just because of the comparison between how much muscle they have to their body fat. If I were to break this down into the Latin terms, sarco means muscle, and penia would be lack of, so it very literally translates to lack of muscle. Okay, so this is the next slide, and it's going to be on the mortality rate based on obesity. So we talked about that obesity has lots of complications that affect health, and a lot of them are pretty serious. But does it affect how soon we die? It's a pretty important question. The answer to this is actually yes, it does. There's a J-shaped curvilinear graph, and the increase in mortality rate as BMI increases. Looking at the graph on the slide right here, it becomes apparent that, between 15 and 25 kilograms per meter squared, there is actually no increase. But significant increases were shown between 27.3 kilograms per meter squared for females and 27.8 kilograms per meter squared for males. So this is another very good reason about why we need to pay more attention to obesity and see what we can do about lessening the occurrence of it. Okay, so now that we've talked about obesity, what do we do to make it a healthy weight? So there's about 6 characteristics of a healthy weight. So the first is that it needs to be appropriate for your age and physical development. So basically for your age and how developed you are. The weight also has to be attainable and sustainable without dramatic change to your diet. So if you want to be that weight, you shouldn't be having to eat a lot or eat nothing. You don't want to be doing that. Okay, so dieting, the weight has to be compatible with the normal blood pressure, lipid levels, and glucose tolerance. So those also have to be met. The weight has to promote good eating habits. So like I said earlier, not dieting, not eating too much. You also have to be able to keep with regular physical activity. So you should still be able to do your average daily thing. And finally, the weight has to be acceptable for the given individual. Okay, next slide. Okay, so how do you maintain or achieve an acceptable weight? So with so many of our population being overweight and obese, it's important to discuss how to maintain or achieve a healthy weight. There are 3 things that contribute to a healthy weight. The first is a gradual reduction of energy intake. This is important because obesity is caused mostly by taking in too much energy than what you're using. Secondly, you have to have regular and appropriate physical activity. So if you're not being active can help with that. That's a good way to get your weight back to healthy amounts. And finally, behavior modification techniques are super important when it comes to getting the right weight and maintaining it. This is important because if you have to get there, you might have to change some of your behaviors. Like if you eat when you're stressed or you don't like to work out, things like that can affect it. So yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna start the quiz. Are you guys ready? Grab a pen or a pencil or however you want to do this. Maybe just keep track in your head if that's what you want to do. Okay, so the first question. Obesity is caused by A, eating unhealthy food, B, spending too much time bulking in the gym, C, water retention from drinking too much water, or D, taking in more energy than can be expended. I'll give you a second to answer that. Okay, so the answer to this question would be D, taking in more energy than you can expend. We talked about that in, I think, the first slide. Okay, so hope you guys were paying attention to the slides. So the BMI value that represents obesity is the next question. So is it A, 30 kilograms per meter squared, B, 42 kilograms per meter squared, 58 kilograms per meter squared, or D, 27 kilograms per meter squared? The correct answer here would be A, 30 kilograms per meter squared. That was one of the bullet points on the first slide. Okay, so the next question is about that survey that was done. So the 2007-2009 Canada Health Measures survey, showed the percentage of those with healthy weight was A, 20%, B, 43%, C, 38%, or D, 25%. Okay, so I have another picture of the graph here. The correct answer for this would be C, 38% of the population was healthy weight. Okay, so the next question, which of the following are complications of obesity? A, hypertension, B, osteoarthritis, C, depression, D, A and B, or E, all of the above? Okay, so the correct answer here would be E, all of the above. As we talked about, hypertension were really big. Osteoarthritis was written on the slide. And depression we had talked about was, gosh. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Jeez. So true or false? Obesity is the same for everyone. A, true, or B, false? Okay, so the jeez. I have a bit of a cough here. Sorry. So the correct oh jeez. Okay, so the correct answer here is false. People are more susceptible than others, and you can also put it on in different amounts and in different places. Huh. Okay. So the next question, the line or point where someone stops being overweight and becomes obese is when they either begin wearing an XXL instead of an XL, B, they weigh 250 pounds, C, they can no longer see their toes, or D, it starts to affect their health. Okay, so the correct answer to this one would be D. So it becomes obesity when it starts to negatively affect your health. Okay, so the next one is what effect does obesity have on the mortality rates? So A, it raises the mortality rate, so more people die. B, it lowers the mortality rate, so less people die. Or C, it has no effect whatsoever on how many people die. Okay, so the correct answer to this one would be A. Obesity actually raises the number of people who die, which, isn't good, so we should obviously lower that. Next slide. Okay, so the next question is true or false? Child weight has no effect on adult weight. A, true, or B, false? And the correct answer is B, false. About 70% of obese children will maintain that excessive weight into adulthood. Okay, so the next question. The condition of sarcopenia is A, obesity caused by eating too many pennies, B, low muscle mass compared to body fat levels, C, the obsession with bathing in pennies, or D, high muscle mass compared to body fat levels. Okay, so the condition sarcopenia is actually, correct answer would be B, it's low muscle mass compared to body fat levels. Okay, so healthy body weight is achieved and maintained by A, running a lot, B, behavior modification techniques, C, regulating food intake, D, appropriate physical activity, E, both A and B, or F, all of the answers except for A. So the healthy body weight would actually be all of the things except A. Yes, running can help, but running excessively isn't necessarily good for maintaining or achieving a healthy body weight. Okay, so that's my presentation. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I hope I was able to teach you something new. Sorry about the coughing fit. I've got a bit of a cough right now. Feel free to let me know how the quiz went in the comments, but thanks for watching.